Okay. Well, here we are with Grammy on January 3rd, 1998. And I'm going to do an interview. These are just some generic questions, Grammy.
Help yourself.
Okay. Could you tell us your full name? Your full name?
Dorothy O. Thomas. Middle name was Ogolia.
Oh.
Something that I never heard before, or since. I haven't heard that.
Ogolia.
Ogolia.
Oh. Now, do you know where that came from, or
Yeah.
where you're...
My mother was an avid reader too, and some heroine in a book was what
Oh,
I
is that right?
been named after. I never have seen that name in print.
Right. How about that? Now, but your maiden name, of course, is Wilson.
Yes.
Wilson. Do you know what your first name means, or who your first name was named after?
No, nothing. No one in particular, I'm sure. There was 2 or 3 girls in the country around here, and I remember one of them named Dorothy, but it was nothing after anyone.
So maybe your parents just liked the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your family name or your parents' names, Wilson.
Yes. Well, that, you mean the nationality?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. There is Indian in the Wilsons that I think we have figured out that I would be a 16th Indian, and but I don't know any nationality except, well, on one side the Johnsons was my father's mother's name, Johnson, and I'm sure there was Swedish in it because they had came down from, I think it was Iowa or somewhere, and crossed over, I forget what river it was, and they got over, finally located at Bean Lake. So I don't really know. I would assume those Johnson's always Swedish as a rule, or one of those countries.
Right.
So I don't really know.
Now, when were you born, Grammy?
The 4th of October, 1911.
1911. And where? Where was that?
At Bean Lake.
Is that right?
Yeah. The Johnsons, my grandmother on my father's side's people there, and he's still there. I've got cousins living there. My mother and grandmother passed away. Why, I don't know who lived there first. Seemed to me like some of the Johnsons. So, and then after that, my dad wound up there, living there. Of course, I don't think he farmed the farm. There was a Johnson that was farming it, but he lived in the house, and we were born in the same house, and the bed was in the same location that it had been when my father had been born there.
Now, you were born in the same house as who?
As my father.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
On Bean Lake?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're still Johnsons. That house burned down. I never remember seeing it because I wasn't very, I think 1 or 2 when I lived there. And but there's a Johnson that lives there yet, the father, and he's got a bunch of boys. So they'll be that, and he had a lot of genealogy, and I wanted to get pictures from him, and I think he would have got them if we'd have went back, probably. And I told him we'd send it back, or we'd have them taken in Atchison, and then they could have forwarded it on, and we'd have paid for them.
Now,
But
who was he?
didn't. It's Ted Johnson
Ted Johnson.
was his name, and of course he's quite a bit younger than I am. He's I would say, well, I don't know how old he would be. They're probably in his late 60s or 70s. I don't know. But I never, that was funny. I lived in Iatan a lot of different times in my life. And, but I never, as close as we all were, we never really visited. Our cousins didn't make much of it. Oh yeah, that was my first or second cousin, you know. But I know in later years, Pat and I met a man that his grandmother was my father's aunt. So, he was a nice man, and of course I knew he would be about a third cousin or so to me. But his wife, he married a girl that was related about the same relationship as Earl and I, Nelliana Large.
Now,
And,
Earl, who is Earl?
Earl was this cousin of
Okay.
my dad.
Oh.
And so that would make us, he was a first cousin, I guess, because, yeah, they was the same as Roy Myers and I were, because his grandmother was my dad's aunt, Lola, and Lola was my dad's mother, Lola Johnson, and then his mother was Dora Johnson, and I remember her well. I think I was, well, it was pretty close to the First World War. It wasn't over, I know it, because she lost a boy overseas in the Navy, and that is the one at the Iatan Cemetery that has a little ridge around it of concrete, and must have had 3 or 4 lots there, and had a nice monument. He had married some woman just not long before he went overseas, and none of us ever knew her. I think she worked in Kansas City, and then his mother was buried there, and the Iatan Cemetery. You wouldn't hardly know that. It was just simply forsaken, you know. It was full. Every time they'd go to dig a grave, they'd run into another one. And a lot of them didn't have monuments. And Pat and I then, those summers she came back and was helping me to clear the house out. We'd go down there, and we had quite a bit of work done on both of my grandmothers are buried in the Iatan Cemetery.
Oh.
And
Now that's on your mom
somebody
and your dad's side.
ran through with a motorcycle. We'd go up there, you know. Of course, that was quite a hill to climb, and knocked chunks off, you know, and everything. So I think we had 3 repaired there, and then the same in Weston to Aunt B's.
3 of the graves repaired.
I don't know. Somebody thought it was a mower had run into it, you know,
Oh.
and the bases were disintegrated.
Oh.
And so I told Pat, well, not much use to, because after I'm gone, they're not going to come back and decorate. So far, Pat does that every year, and we've got 5 cemeteries down there that have relatives in it, and that's a job.
So every year Pat goes
Pat
and she makes visits to
and
those
takes care of the graves.
5 cemeteries worth?
Huh?
She goes to 5 cemeteries?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Weston, Iatan, Mount Bethel. Then there's what is that? Oh, then Roy Myers that's Sugar Creek from Rushville, Missouri. They're all quite a little ways apart, but she goes to every one.
And when during the year?
And she knows where they're at. And we've got never anybody had decorated. My would have been my great grandparents' grave. And Aunt Emma, you've heard of them talk of her. That was Bibi and Mom's and Aunt Mills' aunt. She was my great aunt. And all the shells are all buried in this. And we had a time of finding it. And Florence knew where it was at.
Now, is Shell the family name?
Well, that Victor was my grandmother's name, but her mother married the second time to a Shell.
Oh.
And my grandmother always said what a wonderful man he was. He was so good to them.
Huh. Grammy, I wanted to ask you about your mom and your dad.
Yeah.
If you could give me their full names and what you know about your mom and dad.
Okay. My mother's name was Jenny Mead. Same as Melissa's name.
Yeah.
And let's see, Jenny Mead Wilson, yeah. And my dad's name was William Harrison Wilson. That's always called Harrison.
Now, where were they born?
Well, my dad was born in 1890, and my mother in 93. And now Pat's got all of that.
Oh, okay.
She's got way back on the other. Now, but the Wilsons have been hard to. We knew that my grandfather, Lafayette Wilson, was born somewhere in Oklahoma, but we don't have any place she's written different, getting the census, We never could find it. But we did, I forget what we did get back. Something she got from, let me see. It wasn't Richardson County, that's Falls City. But what did she get? She got Clay County, I think, is where the last, or the first things we had after my great-grandfather had passed away. There was, she had, let's see, it showed the great-grandmother was living there, and they thought there was slaves, and I said, well, I wasn't, it was them brothers that just mooched around. That's what they do, and they took what she had. She had a little farm. I don't think it amounted to much, but she had a place to live after he died, and she had, I think her oldest girl must have been married then.
This is your great-grandfather's wife?
Yeah, that was my great-grandmother. And well, Pat has her name. And that was who was living in the house, was her. And what it was brothers to her, see.
Oh, I see. And where was that? Where was that
and
located?
And her name was Jane Wilson.
Jane Wilson.
And
where did they live?
Well, they wound up in Iatan. And, what happened, they bought I guess they persuaded her to buy a Punch and Judy show. And I could have had them. And when we went to look, they were out of just wood and little figures and things, And of course, they were neither one talented to do it. But can you imagine? And the cords were eaten up by rats or mice, and that wood was disintegrated against termites or something, and they dumped them over the creek.
Oh.
But he said, yeah, you could have had those. And it would have been something, I imagine they was old when they bought them. But anyway, they had a wagon. They'd have had a team on the farm that she'd have had to sold anyway. So they took out, and that was their sister, and they come north to Iatan. I don't know why they picked that particular place. And Leif, my grandfather, was young, I don't know how old he was, but he couldn't have been too old. And that's where they wound up, and I guess they tried to give shows along the way,
Oh, yeah.
But they weren't a theatrical.
Well, tell me about growing up. Did you have any brothers or sisters?
What was that?
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
No.
Okay, what was it like growing up with your mom and dad?
Well, of course, I didn't mind too much. I missed it too because we were on a lot of jobs where mother would be cooking and my dad working on the drainage business, and I wouldn't. School time though, I've been a changed school so much, and but I'd be with kids then, and out in the country they'd be somebody close, you know.
So
and then on Sundays they'd come and watch them dig, you know, because I think they dug always on 7 days a week.
So you changed school a lot because your
yeah.
dad moved around different jobs.
Yeah, always.
So
but I was always lucky because I was a good student, and I could always make it. Now I was shy as a kid, awfully shy. Well, I was shy after I was a grown woman, but more so when I was a kid, and I didn't like to get up before our audience at all, you know. And I was that way for a long time in my life. But anyway, my grandfather committed suicide when he was 42 years old.
On your mom or your dad's side?
My dad.
On the Wilson side. How old was he?
He was 42.
42.
42. And he had a drinking problem. I don't know whether that come from the Indian or not. Possibly they could have claimed it in. But he was considered a good man and honest and paid his bills. And he farmed. And my dad then, after he married, he farmed with him. And but every time he'd get where there was liquor, or probably bought it himself too, why then he'd go on, you know, I'd be better off dead. I never thought he and my grandmother were exactly suited to each other. I don't know. Nobody ever said they weren't. But I always had that opinion. And my grandmother was great to talk to me about anything I'd ask her. She'd tell me, you know. And
what was her name?
Lola.
Lola.
Lola Montez. That's who Karen named it. I thought of calling her Lola. And then I thought, no, it might not be suitable. And Karen said, well, I'm glad you called me Karen.
She might have turned out different.
And I remember they said how she come to have the name. She said her father came in, this Johnson, came in and he said, what are you going to name her? And she said, well, I don't know exactly. And so the mother said, and then he said, how about Lola Montez? And that was a very popular actress in those days.
Oh.
And she sang and danced, you know, in the West particularly. And there was a pack of cigarettes, I think they said, that had Lola Montez was a brand or something.
Oh.
Something that, either that or cigars. And that's how she got named.
How about that?
Then when my grandmother had her last child, no, not her last, her second one. My father had two sisters, and this little girl was born when her father came in and said, how about, why don't you call her Holly? And she said, I was just thinking I was going to name her Hallie, and that's what she was named. And she died when she was 11. And it was so much different. She had her disposition. She could quilt, and I had a quilt, doll quilt she had made that was just gorgeous. And I give it to Karen here, not too many years ago. And by golly, she put it in the washing machine, you know, and washes. And it was the colors and the old time calico prints but she had done a wonderful job for a little girl that's young, and that was the end of that. But she was so different from Aunt Grace, and she liked to housework and stuff. And Aunt Grace was just wild as a deer right from the start.
Grace was her sister, your father's sister.
Absolutely.
Right.
And she died when she was She died in '68, and I think she was 68 years old. She had a bad heart, but she'd had what a life she'd led. She'd married about 6 or 7 times.
Wow.
But she always married him. And then a little while you'd hear she'd been divorced. And but she was wilder than a deer and drank. She was an alcoholic, and so was my dad. And but they were very musical. My dad's people were.
Did your
and
dad?
my dad played the fiddle,
Oh, he did?
Yeah, and he'd play for dances, him and his friends. And one of them played bass, and my dad would go and he'd chord on a piano, to it. And they made rhythm.
Wow.
It was what they could do with, And Aunt Grace had training, but she could sit down and play any piece by ear, and she had a good singing voice, and she was attractive, very attractive woman. She was morally good, but she was attractive, but she wasn't mean or anything for us. Always flatter people,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if she'd tell some man, boy, you're good looking, I tell you, yeah, she could make somebody really build them up.
Now tell me about your school. When you were a child and your mom and dad were moving around.
I didn't go to school until I was 7.
So.
I started, and I think I was in the 2nd grade, the first year at school, when I got out. And then, I was married, in 27, and I was 15, when I was married. And Dad used to, when he'd be in the hospital up here, he'd say, "You know what?" Said, "I married a woman, 15 years old." Said, when was that, Mr. Thomas?" Something he'd just done, and he'd say back in 27. Been married over 50 years. We were married 63 and a half years.
Wow. Isn't that something? What a blessing.
And I told him, I said, "Papa, I hope you can make it till you're 90 at least." He said, "Well, I do too, Mom." I said, "I doubt it." No, he knew his time was up. And Papa was perfectly willing to go. He had no regrets. He said, "Leaving all of you, but it has to come sometime."
Yeah. Wow.
And he was always proud. Oh, he'd have been proud of you being drum major.
Oh.
He would have really loved that.
Well, he had a big part in all of our lives.
Yeah.
We always think
and
of
always
Granddad.
enthused about it. I know Stoney must have got bored, Dad didn't tell him, and when Liz was in college, and he, wouldn't say much. But then I noticed when his granddaughter got in college, and that was tragic. He lost his wife and then lost his daughter, and he really loved that girl.
Oh.
And of course she was UPS driver. And I tell you, she was right on the ball.
Wow.
Driving. She drove from Auburn down here. She had Falls City, and she was short, little, like Stoney, but man, she was good. And they put up a beautiful monument for her when she passed away.
How did she die? What happened?
Drunk driver.
Oh.
She had checked out at, and they lived at Nebraska City was where she lived. And she checked out and was going driving home.
when you were...
And they didn't do nothing with that guy. Put him in, he was a farmer, but pretty well to do. He'd sit all day in the beer joint and go home at night.
Tragic.
So that's when it was.
Grammy, when you were a little girl, do you remember any of the stories your dad used to tell you, or were there any sayings that your mom or dad used to say a lot, or
I don't know.
What did they used to say?
Tom can tell you what I say all the time.
Right.
I'll tell him as a rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then when there's another saying, he says, I always say. But I guess so. He don't say much about it now.
Yeah. How about
say as a rule?
Yeah. How about your mom and your dad? Did they say anything regularly?
They had a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Always. And Mom couldn't take a joke as well as he could.
What did your mom like to cook? Did she like to cook anything special, or?
Well, of course, in later years, my mom developed a pretty good a thing of cooking, much more than she did when I was young growing up. But Mother helped Aunt Florence a lot, and Aunt Florence helped her. But I see, Aunt Florence was married to a man 17 years older than she was, and he didn't have good health. And they owned that little farm, and they had owned, I think, another farm, and they owned a house, 2 houses in Iatan, and a big store. And when I was growing up, and then the town just kind of squished down, just like little towns do. And there was nothing there, with no paving streets or anything. And so she would go out, and she and Aunt Florence would put up hay. Aunt Florence had those 2 big old draft horses. Oh, they was immense, that had been worked at a brewery, hauling the kegs of beer, from one place to the other. And Prince and Barney. I never saw such big horses in my life. And she handled them old horses, and Miss Hilly back there, where she raised corn and then later tobacco. And so I think she got 10,000 for the farm. I forget how many acres, but there wasn't a lot of tillable ground. It was good for pasture. And but Mother would go out there, and of a morning she'd get his lunch packed, and he worked on the section when he was there. And he'd go out, and then she'd come back in about 4 and to get dinner, from my dad. And they got along well together then, only just him being weak on the booze. It wasn't too good a situation, but they got along.
What did he drink? What did he like to drink?
Huh?
What kind of alcohol did your father drink?
It was, I presume it was hard liquor. Well, in earlier days, it was moonshine was what it was. And they'd make it. I remember one time my dad made liquor, or made white mule and so forth, they called it. And he and my uncle, my mother's youngest brother, and they got their sugar. And I never did know. I wasn't too old a kid, but I was old enough that didn't care, not too interested. And I knew I could hear them talking that was what he was doing. I think they had it back in my grandmother's place there in Iatan. She had 13 acres, and it was along the road, and a dirt road from Bean Lake to there. You get after people got cars, man, you'd go that was just 3 miles, I think, in between there, and you just covered with stuff. And my dad and them, that was when we were going together. They would get in an old Ford and tie brush on the back, and wait till they could see somebody coming, up the road, and take out ahead of them, And you can imagine what a fog that would, of that old dust, just be covered with it.
Wow.
But I got off the track, see?
Yeah, now moonshine.
Huh?
Yeah, making liquor.
Yeah.
And in the back road.
He got caught.
Oh.
Yeah. And I don't know whether he got caught, and Uncle Rube run, and he got through going down the back of this hill. My grandmother lived on the other side of the road, you know, on this hillside. But I think, I won't say for sure, I don't think it was on her place, because they'd have felt bad about it, being my grandmother. And I think it was down in that bottom, like we used to go down Mills and around, you know, down in there. There was a lot of woodsy places there. And a great big swampy lake there. We called it the Railroad Pond, but it extended further than that. And you'd walk down the railroad track. I'd go down to I-10 if Dad was working somewhere. And the water muxes would just slide off, you know. They'd be up sunning on the railroad track. And then there was a bank down there, and people used to fish there all the time. But they were snakes would just slither.
Wow.
You know, no hurry to get away. But I watched where I stepped.
Oh yeah.
But he got off. I don't think he even stayed all night. I can't remember down there, but he got off somewhere. I don't think they had them at the actual, you know, place. But I mean, they were there and they run.
Right.
And Uncle Rube, they didn't know he was mixed up, I guess.
About what time was that? What year would that be around?
Well, I believe I was married, I believe. No,
Maybe the 30s? Or?
I guess it was before that. Because when was a repeal? What year was that?
Prohibition? I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was. I know I was married, and Dad was working up here, somewhere along the river.
Maybe early 30s.
My home.
Yeah.
And then I remember them talking about coming back, that they could get beer or something,
Right.
you know.
Now, did you like to read as a child?
Yeah, I read from the time I was little.
Now, where did you get your books? And
Well, wherever reading things were pretty scarce. Now at I-10, Elsie, one of my friends, loved to read too, and she had somebody that would cut the magazine, a serial, you know, they run every week, and cut them. We'd get stories like that, you know, and we'd read all of them. And Elsie was good at repeating. If she went to a movie, why, she'd remember every little incident and tell me when she got home about it. Yeah.
Now, Elsie lived near you?
Elsie's grandfather ran the post office and a general store there.
At Iatan?
Mm-hmm. And that old store never had a coat of paint. I've got pictures of it when, unless Pat took them, in the early days, and it said, I forget, doctor. And they had 3 doctors one time in living there. But so it was a pretty good sized town in the time. But there wasn't too many houses left. They're all there that was there in my lifetime. And one guy, Dad's home place there in I-10, Elmer, bought a house and a little bit of land, but not a whole lot. And then he get enough work building fences and things like that, but he didn't have a crop to put in. And he built the tobacco barn that's there. And the home place was what they called it, and it's just exactly like it was then. It was just almost one of them shotgun houses. It was, and it raised a family. I think it was four. I can't imagine how big a family, and I can't imagine how come anybody could manage. But there was boys and girls both, and they were guys. One of them was older than my dad, the oldest, and the youngest went to school with me, Jimmy, and they were from the South, the father was, and I'd had an idea that he had come from a pretty good family. I never knew how come he'd come up there, and he met this woman over in Leavenworth, and I don't know, they had to met there because that's where she was from. But anyway, he was going to Southern talk. He'd always say, "Jimmy, you little booger." He'd say about that. And Jimmy is still, he was 90 this summer.
Wow.
So he's 4 years older now. And
what was his family name? Jimmy, do you know what his last name?
Jimmy Page.
Page.
Uh-huh. And they bought the place from Elmer and Pearl.
Now, Elmer and Pearl are who?
Was Dad's mother and dad.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Now, could you tell me, Grammy, about your mother and her sisters? Could you tell me all the names?
Well, they were so good to me as a kid, and I'd go and stay with them, part time, and they most always were the ones that bought my clothes for me, because there'd be a lot of times my dad didn't have any work around there, and.
Now, what were the names? What were all the sisters' names?
There was Miller Leila was her name. She always signed her checks Leila. And Miller, that was funny. When the children were born, as a rule, they'd put a name in with it. Now, she was, I believe that this Mrs. Miller was there when she was born. So they named her Miller. And that was her first name, really, her first name. But Mildred Leila. Leila was part from a part of Pennsylvania bunch. They had, my grandfather, Norris, had I never did know why he left and came east, because he had nobody. Well, yeah, he had a stepbrother here. No, not a stepbrother. Yeah, it would be, because his mother had died, and then the father married again. And a homely looking bunch of them. They all had money, but
now, Norris?
They had coal on their place.
Oh.
Farm. And it's still there, and they say it looks pretty good. It's a brick house. And who was it? Oh, BB, I guess. And Uncle John went out there. And when they came back, there was 4 different things set back. And it was a old chair, a real pretty old antique chair. Pat's got it now. And this is a chair, a cover lid that's, I forget how old. It's got the date, on the corner, like a bedspread. And that, and a family Bible. And what was it? I can't think what else. I was thinking the other day about that. Anyway, there was 4 items. Oh, a sugar bowl. Karen's got the sugar bowl.
And those all came from BB's?
Those all came from the Norris side.
The Norris side. Now, the Norris...
One of the nieces, or, well, no, wasn't it niece, but it would be a step down from BB, the generations. And she sent those things back. So she had a lot of antiques, or she wouldn't have parted with them, or she might have felt like the girls should have had it. And we all know that if she wouldn't have given BB all 4 things, it was if her being invited around. But you know who kept them? She had it.
Now, the Norris name is what part of the family? What is Norris?
Norris part of that was my grandfather. And that was my mom's father.
That was Grandma Jay's father.
Mm-hmm. That was Grandma.
And what was his full name?
Huh?
What was his full name?
Robert Victor.
Robert Victor Norris.
Wait a minute. No. Robert Gillen Victor was his name, because the Pennsylvanians called him Gillen.
Oh.
And it seemed like after he must have been a young man, because I think he was 21 when he came to Weston, and that his that half, no, it was a half brother of his. Yeah, it wasn't a step brother. He had a bunch of little kids, and then they said, now he was fairly smart man, I guess. I mean, he read a lot, and he didn't get to go to school as much as the rest of them because he was the oldest, I think. And he said he'd carry them little kids on his back to school when it was bad weather, you know. They were so much younger. Then they had more kids. And so he left. I don't know whether they was trouble or it might have been in 21. He wanted to see the western part, you know,
Now,
of Pennsylvania. And he came to Weston, and I don't know whether, I think maybe that was, might have been taken up homestead like there at that time. I think that's how he probably got a, you know,
got some land there.
yeah.
Yeah.
This stepfather, and he helped clear all of that, and then got nothing out of it, you know, just his board.
Right.
So then he branched out. They were never too friendly. Now, my grandmother and them, maybe once a year they'd get together somewhere, or if somebody died, you know, then a little bit of kin or something like that was Uncle Billy Norris. And I remember going there, I think it was for a funeral with my grandmother when I was pretty little. And there's still Norrises around Weston, but they're down the line. I mean, they were two, and they had, there was two boys they had, and they were fairly well off when they died. They never married. And this one, I believe, was the ugliest man I ever saw, but he was good. I mean, good to all the cousins. But he was a homely man.
Now, your mom had how many sisters?
Had his other sisters. Well, Aunt Blanche was the oldest, and she married a Lipscomb, and he was a fine old guy.
That was his last name?
Lipscomb.
Lipscomb. What was
John
his?
Lipscomb.
John, Uncle John.
And his one of his brothers married one of these my grandfather's one of these. It was Billy Norris and those the ones that had come from Pennsylvania. This brother of Uncle John's married one of them, so they were all pretty hooked up in a way, not really too much of a kin, but they all knew each other.
Right.
And then next was Aunt Florence was the next in the girl line, and she and BB fought from the time they were girls.
Now, what was BB's full name and what was Florence's full name?
Blanche Emma. She was named after the old Aunt M, you know.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and then next was Aunt Mill, and that was Miller Leila, and I didn't know it. I thought they'd tell about when they lived at the Macaulay place, you know, and farms and things. And I thought, oh heavens, that must be miles away from here. Why, well, just close to Weston, you know. And we went there one Sunday, and we were going to. I said, I want to go see where you lived before you moved to Ireton, I guess it was. And well, it was just out there, just on the way to Aunt Mills. And we went there a lot, you know. And there was a place below it they called Swamp College, and it was a schoolhouse. Well, I thought it was a college, you know. Why, that was just a name.
Oh.
They've probably done that as a joke, you know, just a grade school.
Huh.
And it's still standing there, and I think they store grain in it in the summer.
So
or
it
in
was.
the fall.
So it was Florence,
Florence.
Blanche, Mill,
Yeah.
And then
Mead.
And Mead was the youngest.
No, she was the youngest girl. Ruby Leo was the youngest. The boy, the one that was with Pop, having the still, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ruby Leo.
So how many total kids were in Grandma Jay's?
There was 9 born. There had been a girl, Geneva, was the oldest child, I guess. She was the oldest girl, but she passed away, well, I think 20-something. Consumption, I guess TB is what they said, but I don't know.
So 9 children.
9 children. And I tell you, they was orderly. They had to work. And BB, of course, that could have been one reason that she was so ornery and bossy. But she had, at the time, she had to quit school, well, which was probably about the 7th, I imagine. I think she was 12 when she had to quit school. My grandmother, it had to have been arthritis she had. And she'd get down every winter. She'd be in bed half the time. And I imagine a lot of overwork too. And probably her knees were her worst trouble. And well, somebody had to keep house. So my Aunt B would take over and have to get them other littler kids ready for school. And the girls must have been together. I mean, the 4 girls. And of course, the oldest one was a girl. But then there was 3 boys then, and then the girls, and then Uncle Rube was the last one. And he was small. He wasn't as hardy looking as the rest of them, but he was smart. But too smart for his own good at times, you know. But he dealt in fruit. He'd go out, and he was working for somebody else then, and he'd tell how they'd buy a whole orchard when it got ripe, and then they'd do all the picking, see, and the packing, and give so much. And then he wound up in Colorado. No, he was there for a while, but in San Francisco. And he worked for somebody that was pretty big in that kind of business. And he worked till he retired then. And I guess he was good, but it was shipping and getting, I think the fruit and stuff had come in, then you had to grade it and stuff and get it around to the different retailers. But he was smart.
Did you visit your grandparents? Did you?
Oh well, of course my grandfather, 2 grandfathers died within 2 weeks of each other. The one that committed suicide, and the other one. And I know my Leif had made the remark when he come to the Robert Norris's funeral, which he died first, and he said, "I just wish I could be as good a man as he was." And he was notary public here in Iatan was his title, and as I say, he was fairly sharp, but he read a lot. And one of his brothers was a doctor, but they got to go to school, see.
Mm-hmm. And this is your grandfather. And his
that
full
was
name?
my
What was his
Robert
full?
Gillen. But he come on east, and then he became a farmer, see. He never did own a farm till they got to Iatan. And then my oldest uncle, Charlie Norris, he bought that brick house in Iatan, which is still there, and the 13 acres. And he said, "Pa's not going to make it." He had cancer, had a skin cancer, and he went to St. Joe and had it worked on. And I guess it was terrible pain. They tied him in the chair and then put this salve or something on there and just eating it, you know, just eat it away. Horrible pain. And then when he come back, I guess he wrote and told this doctor about it, his brother, and he came in, and I think one or two sisters with him, and visited him because they figured Robert wasn't going to make it too long. And he said, well, it was the worst thing you could have done, because he had it down here on his chin, like. And I know they said he had a black silk handkerchief, almost like a robber, but it covered this that chin part. But he didn't last too long. But they knew that they had to have a place to stay, and the two older brothers were good to send money.
Now, how old did your grandmother live?
Huh?
How old did your grandmother live?
78, the one.
She was the
Norris.
one. Now she was the one that had arthritis in the winter.
Yeah, in the winter, and yeah, she was 78, and my other grandmother lived a bit at 70. And I believe she was 70 years old, but she had a horrible life. She was never what you call ambitious or energetic woman, because other women that is left now, he was 42, so wasn't any older than that, I know, when he died, and they would have got something they could have found something to do, because she was smart enough woman, and but there's no get up and go. Now, Mom, or Grandma, I always called her Mom. I loved her, and but now my mother didn't care for her, because when it happened that when he was dead, by then my dad and he were farming together, and my dad didn't have anything, any assets to put in the business, but they had two good sets of teams. I think a mule team and other horses, but they were good horses, and they had bought them, I believe, on a note. You could go and get a note, and this guy's name was Wilson, Uncle Bill Wilson, but no relation, and we had all kinds of things, because he was related to the Lipscomb, to Uncle John, and he was known as just a money lender around there. And we have found more traces of things in old checks and old notes that have come due. And Pat's got the note for those teams that my grandfather had got the money from this guy, this Wilson. I guess he made good on all of the notes as far as that goes. But then it showed where she had sold them back to him,
Your grandmother.
And got money out to the lender. And she got money and never told my dad anything about it. See? Well, that left them nothing to work with with crops or anything. And I suppose she didn't know what else to do. I don't know.
So when your granddad died, that had a bad impact on your father. When your granddad died, that was bad for your father.
Yeah, because they never had any trouble getting along. Right. And then you take them to sell their things they worked with. Right. They had nothing to do. So they up and moved to my grandmother and Aunt Grace. Those the only ones left, see. And they moved to Atchison. Well, she was 12 or 13. Well, too young to be turned out. And she went to, I believe she went to clerking in a store first. And
who's this, Grace?
Yeah.
Grace.
And nothing fazed her, at all. And she was sharp in some ways she wasn't. But everybody liked her. She had a good personality. But I remember they told it on her, said when she was little. Now I think she was my grandfather's favorite, and she went to church much in high tennis. Oh, they wanted her to play, and she was young, and she went, and so they come back and said, Grace, what did they think of your plan? Said, well, the preacher said, Jesus Christ, that little girl could really play. And they knew he didn't say that.
Now there was a lot of quilt making and a lot of beautiful rugs made between Blanche, Beebe, Mill, and me.
Now Aunt Bee didn't quilt. She could have pieced. She wasn't good at handwork, but she was a whiz on cutting out a dress or a coat or anything, and sew on the sewing machine. But her stitches weren't good. And Florence could make the littlest, daintiest by hand. She couldn't have sewing machine. She just botched it up, you know. And Aunt Mill was the one who made all the quilts at the last, and she made some pretty ones. And she sold a bunch. She got $25 for them. I thought she really had robbed them, you know. Yeah. And then Roy had a bunch left. She left him. She'd buy new garbage cans, tippets, and that kept the rats out. There are mice. And they were just loaded with mice out there on the hill on the farms. But you know, and at Mill, there wasn't much. And she loved to. She raised bees. Had the honey, you know, up there on the lake, and a big garden. And I don't see how Aunt Mill ever done the work she did. And then she got her money. Keeping the hunters. They'd come, you know, when hunting season started until it was over. And Uncle Harry got his part of it. He went hunting with him. He got so much a day. And
so as a guide, did he get paid to hunt with him?
Yeah, and she kept him. And in the summer she'd make tablecloths. Him do stuff for that because she had to get up 3 o'clock, see, to get breakfast for them. And then they'd go in shifts. Maybe there'd be another bunch of blinds, you know.
Now this was on the lake. This was not
Bean Lake.
Bean Lake. Wow, so they'd get up early for the hunters.
She'd get up and start cooking, see, and feed her breakfast before they left.
So they would pay, or would they just
yeah,
give?
they paid her because that's where the only place she could collect it. And that farm outfit, when the crops were sold, that money was split 3 ways. It was she, Roy, and Uncle Harry. And they always said Uncle Harry was mostly just a boss, you know, around. But he worked too because Roy Myers didn't have the personality that his dad did. Oh, his dad was just you'd think he was the best man on earth, you know, to see.
Okay, now Harry, Mickey, and Roy, what was the relationship?
Well,
they were.
The mother and Roy were very close.
So Roy
but they had no use for. Neither one had any use for their dad too much. Well, and Roy was the disappointment to his dad, but his dad really loved him. But Roy had no. Uncle Harry would have loved for Roy to have been liked him too, and liked to go hunting and stuff. And Roy, I bet, never went hunting in his life down there. He'd used a gun to shoot stuff, but no, he had no desire. He thought he'd better be working, you know, instead. But Uncle Harry done all the managing. He'd go to town and he'd get this, see that this was done or so and so. So he done his part. But see, then they had trouble. I never could figure that out, and I don't think that. I thought later, well, it's just as well you don't, because Roy Myers, when they had, well, let's see, that was after he come back from the army, I guess, and so we were up here. We didn't see all of it, you know, that the rest of it. And there was a woman. Well, in fact, her husband was Roy's third cousin, I guess. He was of Myers, and no, yeah, no, he wasn't of Myers. No, his mother was a Myers. That was it. So he was a cousin of theirs. And this Sally Mae was a pretty woman, real tall woman, and nice looking, and good dresser, and a good worker. And they lived up beyond where Roy's place was. And they had that, and he sort of had a wild spurt. And they had dances, and they'd go to dances. This might have been started before that, but I never thought in my heart that there was ever anything to it, only in Uncle Harry's mind. Because later he was in the asylum, where he died.
Now that's Uncle Harry. Now,
That was Uncle Harry.
okay, so Aunt Mill and Uncle Harry were married.
Yeah,
They were man and wife, and their
I always
son.
thought there was something. Now, Aunt Mel swore that that Sally Mae come, and she had wanted her to divorce him, and she would marry him, But I never believed it, and I think it was just an obsession with her. And Mom said she was jealous of him when earlier days. I mean, when they first got married, said she was jealous of him. But I've got a picture, or I've got it here somewhere, but we never could find him. And of that male, beautiful woman, she was always the smallest one of the bunch, and tall and thin. And she went to San Francisco and stayed with Uncle Harry Norris. He was single then, and she took Roy with her, and they always said that it was illness, but we never knew for sure. But Aunt Mel used to tell Aunt Greta when they go down, said, "Don't sit on his bed." So I always thought that she caught something from him, and I don't know for a fact or not. But they never. He always had a bed. Aunt Mel slept upstairs with Roy, and old Mike slept up there too. And Uncle Harry slept downstairs. So we never knew. She never said anything to me, and I don't know if she ever did to the old aunts or not. But he was nice to all of us. And at Christmas time, he'd say, "Dorothy, what do you want for Christmas?" And one year I told him, I said, "I want a pair of silk hose, and the color is gunmetal." I said, "You should remember that," because he had hunted so long, But I do know when he had a sister that lived in Kansas City, and she kept, there was several girls who stayed there that worked in Monk's or Sears, I don't know which, and they're just like a little boarding house. And she'd get attached to the girls, and they'd come up with her to see. And he'd always say, "Wasn't she the prettiest thing?" Go on. So he liked the women. So I never knew. But Roy and Aunt Mill, and then I guess they come to almost blows. He hit Aunt Mill once with a board, and he told her. Roy told him, he said, "If you ever touch her again, I'll kill you." So that's the way it happened. But at the table, he was one of them men that didn't know what he was eating, and talk all the time, just blow. And they never opened their mouth. They never, hardly civil, to be something sarcastic, or Roy would answer. Because Roy could be ornery. Mm-hmm. And he was always nice to me. But he was mean in a lot of ways. And he told somebody, one of them men down there, that, what was it? And he told something about that Louis told that, and told Aunt Meg and them or something. Said what was it? I can't think what it was about, but it's something about, he said Roy had give him It was some piece of farm machinery that I can't think what it was now. But anyway, it wasn't so. And he said Roy brought it up and sold it for something, up in Omaha with him. But Dad asked him if he could have those rings off an old set of harness, and he would let him have them. And that was still hanging there when we was down there at the sale. He never, and that was the awfulest thing you ever saw when we went in that house. Talk about this is crowded. They're Christmas packages. They maybe had looked at them, but they wrapped them up just like they was. And there were shirts. Roy had shirts there that he couldn't have begun to got into them now, rotten. Mice had eat in them, but just a lot of things. And there they just wrapped that up. So-and-so sent them. Wow. And Mel had beautiful sets of sheets. And then she crocheted big borders on the fold back, and they're pretty. There'd be a big mouse hole. It'd been impossible. You can't do much with crochet unless you rip it off the back and start over. It's just horrible how they appreciated it because they kept it, but no, they wouldn't use it.
Now, how old was he when he passed?
How was that?
How old was Uncle Roy when he passed?
86.
86. And how did he die? I know at first he had a situation happen at the house.
That burned. He got burned bad. And I thought he would go then. And but he went in St. Joe, and there was another. I don't think Roy ever appreciated that, but anyway, the neighbors, they had his telephone number. One neighbor knew their telephone number, I think. It was Jack Lake's cousin. It was some kid on Uncle Harry's side. That was, so they called her. I guess they didn't know my number. It didn't look. It would have been there because Roy had it wrote on that telephone book and things. But anyway, she come down, and she lived in South St. Joe, so it was just a little 15 minutes you could get from Roy to St. Joe, and so she come down, and this one neighbor, this Cox, that bought that one farm, he was calling the ambulance from Atchison to come. Well, I guess it turned out it was just as well he went the other place because they had a burn center in St. Joe where Atchison didn't have it. So he went there, and then she finally called me because I guess Roy told her to, and I knew nothing. Let's see. We knew nothing about me being going to be the heir till after Mel died was when he told me that. So, but he had. Well, let's see. Yeah, she was dead though then. Yeah, at Mel, he had nobody there, and so Dad and I went up there, and he said he didn't want to go there. He wanted to go to Atchison. So he was there 6 weeks in the hospital, and them burns, and he was burned bad. He was on his arm, and then on one hip, like was a bad burn. I think he had to have some skin grafted down there.
What was that? Hot water? What happened?
No, fell in the stove, passed out.
Oh.
And he laid there for I don't know how long, and he couldn't get to the water for a drink, and I guess he'd missed his. Well, he was there about 3 days, I guess, or more, and somebody happened to go up, and I guess he hollered, he said he was in the kitchen, and he started to go in the other room, and he blacked out. And then when he got up, he that he was coming out or something, and right by that door, where that big old heater sit, why he fell in that and burned. And he managed to, with a nail, I never understood it, but with the nail, he opened a can of peaches because he could crawl in, and underneath the sink was some canned goods. And with the nail, he opened a can of peaches, and I get to drink the juice.
Boy.
He's tough.
Yeah. Now, he was so tough to get along with. How were you able to maintain a relationship with him for so long? How were you able to, I mean, he left everything to you. How were you able?
Never knew. And after Aunt Mel died, so she died first, at 97. And he told us, and I believe he told us at the funeral, he said, now, Dorothy, I want you and Roy to come down during the week and said, go with me to the bank. Said, I want you to sign your name down. And I was on the checking account, and that was all that was ever said. And I think he trusted me, I'm sure. But then if I was to go before Roy, or Roy Myers went, he wanted Roy Thomas to have that thing.
So he felt the same way about Granddad.
Yeah, so he did. He'd get mad. Now I think he was envious of Dad. Because Dad had managed to have a good car, and he was fun to be around. And Roy had nothing. I mean, had that money and farms, but it didn't do him any good. He drove an old pickup truck, and it just almost tortured to ride in, all them years. And he kept it up. But I mean, it would have me and you had to go to Plant City or somewhere to get every year to get that license and so forth. But it was terrible.
So he relied on you to get his truck.
Well, and he was up in Fall City from January. Let's see, January when he come up, because that was before Christmas that he got burned. And then when spring come, he wanted us to take him back. And I said, okay, I want him to come up there. Now, he'd have probably went to the Atchison things, nursing home, if I had went back. But this way, it was too much running. And I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing, And I know we thought we was going to have to pay $8,000 or something for doctor bills down there, because when you're not in the same town with them to go to the hospital, and that was hard on Granddad, driving 2 and 3 times a week over to St. Joe, because I don't know, he had a wreck, not a wreck, somebody hit his bumper. That was it. And we got paid for it. Oh, Ronnie and Junior got the bumper pulled back. But somebody was running into him in the back or something. And Dad never wanted to go to St. Joe anymore after that. We used to go over there when Pat would come home and go to the Goodwills and the different shops, But that cured him. He didn't have any. And that's the town he was born in. It's St. Joe. But anyway, so we took him down, and he stayed that summer. And of course, he had the farms rented, had for several years. And he said he'd go to Atchison. He went and saw Mommy twice a week, done her wash, and had an ironing, and took that to the hospital. And he always took her something to eat that he'd raised, tomatoes, and he'd applesauce. He'd have all fixed up neat, and she used to would mean him at first. She said, "Roy don't want me to come home," and he thought. She said, "I could have got that nigger to it." That's what she called her, and she was help there. I think a aide or something, and she said she would have come, and had her. Roy said, "Nobody's coming here and stay just continual 7 days a week," and he tried to get help. And different people he knew of, that didn't work like that. But nobody wants to go to a place like that.
Yeah. What do you remember about your mom?
Mom.
Yeah, what do you think about your mom?
Well, now, Mom was raised by the old school that most people were in those days, and I was to a certain extent, and it wasn't overly affectionate. Now, if you notice, I was never as affectionate as his granddad was, and he knew that was my temperament. Now, my grandmother, or my mother, I can't, we got along all right because you better, or you'd catch it. And that's the way she was raised, no doubt. See, people weren't as affectionate as they are nowadays. And it's a big improvement. And every one of you always say, "I love you" when you quit, Well, I wouldn't have thought of saying that, And it'd been almost embarrassed.
Right.
But Grandma, really, we enjoyed each other after she come to live with us. She was there 5 years. And we both loved to read. And she got so, she was good to, her hands were good. She knew she could do anything she ever did with her hands, and she'd peel and things like that, but she couldn't stand up, hardly at all.
Right.
And it's gotten almost as bad for me. It's hard for me to stand or walk. And but I said if I got so I could get around in the house, that was all I cared for. I was happy.
Now, did she ever, when she was staying with you and Granddad, did she ever talk to you about things you did when you were a child?
No, not too much about when I was a child. Of course, I stayed with the old aunts a lot too, and I went to school at Leavenworth.
So you were away from her quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'd go up to Aunt Bill's and stay at Aunt Florence's.
Did you ever miss your mom when you were with Aunt Florence?
No, not really. That's what I say. I see she was, Greta was 17 when she come in for the first time. And so it had been a long time, you can imagine, since we'd left there. And, well, let's see, Greta was, well, we had married 4 years when Greta was born. And so, and we'd stayed out west. We hadn't stayed out, wasn't there more than a year, I don't think. And when we came on back. So, but we were, no, you wouldn't call us close, but we had more fun that last 5 years when she stayed there. Because we'd read and she got so she knew. And we'd have quite a bit of company. Daddy'd get acquainted out at the dumps,
Yeah, yeah.
And then Junior and Ronnie stopped a lot and had coffee. And she got so she knew all of what friends we picked up there. And Dad got so he knew a lot of people. I didn't, but he'd know them from the dump coming out there. And he enjoyed that dump. He said, "I know they got tired of me." But said once in a while Junior would get a little owly, but Ronnie never did. And Ronnie died. here last year.
Oh, we did.
Thanksgiving, a year ago, Thanksgiving.
What happened?
I don't, heart, just massive heart.
Oh, boy.
In fact, they brought him to St. Joe Hospital, I think it was, from there, but he died. He lasted a day or so, but he wasn't conscious.
Right. So what kind of food did Grandma J like in those 5 years, those last?
Well, Grandma had gotten to be a good cook in later years. Well, she always could cook. What simple food we had. But Aunt Florence was a place to go for the good food.
Oh.
But she was that herself. But she said, you know, to tell the truth, said I can't cook anything anymore. Said it'll burn on me, she said a cake and a pie, just nothing. And it wasn't. But she had thick cream, you know, had quite a few cows. She had thick cream. She had a strawberry patch. I remember Dad got sick. He ate too much whipped cream and strawberries. And he actually would roll out the yard. And they were all of them were so good to us. But anyway, Grandma was gone all of that many years, and when she come back, of course, Dad and Louie couldn't get along.
O'Keefe's residence. Hey! Good, real good. Me and Grammy here talking. Okay. Oh, great. Great. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, Patty. Okay. Bye-bye. Patty.
Oh,
Now, one of my favorite dishes, all-time dishes that you were always making down in Fall City, Grammy, was the cherry cobbler.
yeah.
Now, what'd you do to cherry cobblers to make them the way they tasted?
Well, not too much, no different than anybody, but you got to get pie cherries. Those ones you get, you have made up thing you just pour in. They're too sweet.
You gotta have a little sour to them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And did you check them for pits, or you really can't always
Well,
guarantee?
I didn't, but a fella could lose a tooth like that.
Now, you added quite a bit of sugar to it, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
And what did you do anything special with the crust?
Well, I've got that recipe that never failed me, but it makes enough for, I think it's 2 pies with top and bottom, and I forget what else. And I always send that to the girls. I'd send that. They had always called them one.
Now that's the big pan, pan cobbler. Yeah.
Well, you could make it, you know, but it'd always call for quite a bit. You can freeze it though. Freeze your dough.
Yeah.
Have it pinch off, you know, make a pie, and then put it in the freezer.
Now,
and you can freeze it.
Oh. Now,
and I tell you, Dad and I get some awful messes we'd make. He'd help. He'd do the rolling for me, and he'd have to patch. He'd roll it out, put it over, then he'd press down and it'd cut off too short. Then so I'd patch it on there. And we'd get through. We'd make our dough the day before we was going to make the cobbler, and then when he had to go sit down, and I'd look around. You never saw such a mess in your life. That work table we had in the middle would be just dough, flour all over us. He'd say, "Ma, come in and sit down. We'll rest a while." And then we'd rest, and then we had to fly and get that clean.
Yeah.
But we'd never do it, you know. If we'd have waited until the next day, because we couldn't get.
What's your favorite kind of dressing for Thanksgiving? What kind of dressing do you like?
That wasn't good the other day. That was too
too wet.
Too much grease.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine. I cut, well, not a lot of onion. I didn't know how much she was going to make a dressing, you know. But that, I couldn't taste onion in it, and I don't believe she put sage in it. Maybe she did. She had sage.
Yeah.
But
it was wet.
yeah, it didn't. And that's my favorite part of turkey.
You like this? Yeah. You like the dressing?
Dressing.
Yeah. Now you have a green bean recipe that is a sweet green bean, and it has a little ham hock in it, right? What's your green bean, general green bean?
I'd like to cook it with those little pig hocks.
Yeah.
They're smoked, and they're about that tall, you know.
And what kind of green beans do you use?
And what?
What kind of green beans do you use?
I like the Kentucky Wonders. Now you can, well, it's body, I guess you'd call it, because, you know, Kentucky Wonders used to be so stringy. Lord, you pull them off and they still, you find strings in there. But now they're stringless. But I like the pole beans, and we had them here, but the weeds got us. And the bugs got in them green beans, and I tell you, just eat everything, you know.
Oh.
And then when it got a little cooler, well, by gosh, we got a couple of good messes off of it. And but there's times I can't do anything out there. I like to go out and pick and look around, you know. I take my walker with me, and but it did raise a lot of nice tomatoes. And they do good, because neither one of them knows anything about gardening too much, you know. But as long as they're willing and you get the plants out of it, I don't criticize. I bought a butterfly bush last year, and Tom, I told him about that. I mean, he knew where it was, everything. And I'd be doggone if he didn't dig that up this fall. I have to tell him, I said, now Tom, one of these days I want you to cut that back. You have to cut it back, and it'll just leave about like that. And it comes up every year. And it had 3 colors on it. And that was unusual. That's the reason I sent for it. I'd had one over at 5009. I think it died in a couple of years.
So you planted that specifically for the garden, and Tom dug it up.
Oh, I had it there, and I showed him. He saw it, they're blooming. And I said, now, he was coming over the next day, and I figured, well, he knew he could see the big bush there. Got in there and plowed up, then brought it. I said, well, pitch it. It was in the wrong place anyway. I didn't place it in the right place. But I hated to get on outside of the garden fence, because Fritz wets like a horse, you know, and I was afraid he'd kill him. And
do you have a nickname, Grammy?
well, let me journey Dorothy.
Dorothy. Uh-huh.
Dorothy.
Now, where did Phoebe get her nickname? And
well, I think that was when Greta was little. Now, BB was as foolish over her as that Pat is Ook. You know.
Oh, is that right?
Just, and it used to make my grandmother Nora said, oh, that blanche makes me sick. She couldn't stand her, so she made over her so much.
So that was just her nickname came from Pat, or?
Well, I think from Greta mostly, and because she'd want to. I think she'd say something like BB, you know, and it stuck then.
How about Aunt Mickey? Where did Mick come from?
Well, Aunt Blanche always called her Mickey Myers. She called her. They all liked Aunt Mill. Aunt Mill, when she got old now, she got pesky. And we went to the nursing home to see her every time we'd go down, and she'd sit there and she knew who it was, and so Roy had brought her an apple, and I don't think she peeled it. I think she pinched off the hide or something, or she had something in her hand. Maybe Roy Myers had peeled it. I don't know. And anyway, she looked at Dad.
Right? What did he say?
I said, I see you got pelted. But Dee Dee, when she was up there, in '97, and Dad went in and asked her, he said, you know who I am, Blaine? She said, Roy Thomas. Just as plain, But it was a shame. She just drew up in the knot. What did they call it? There's a name for that.
In the fetal position?
Yeah, fetal.
Oh, yeah.
And we paid her funeral in advance because she was getting low on money, and but that veterans guy there was awful good about BB. He got her a raise every year because he'd go by what she had left, see, and he see that she got it. And I think somebody said that they had a place for Spanish American veterans, women, widows, somewhere. But she got good care there. Mr. Kenner always said it didn't seem right. The ones that paid, I mean, the ones that didn't pay got just as good a care as the ones that didn't. Said they have to pay for their to make up the difference,
Yeah.
But,
How about Granddad? What are some of the happiest times you remember with Granddad?
well, he was well satisfied with life, and he was glad when he could quit work, and after that, but he was pretty well happy all the time. If he was, when he wasn't happy, because he didn't keep it to himself. He told something he had to get it out, bring it out. If there's something didn't suit him or something, he'd bring it out. But he always said, Ma, we wound up so much better than we really should have, according to all the laws of nature, And he said, I just wish my dad and your dad could have lived in these times and had a social. Said, why, they'd have lived like a king, on that.
What did he like to eat? What did Granddad like to eat that you made?
Granddad liked most of it. When he was young, you couldn't fill him up.
Now, he smoked for a while, didn't he?
He smoked. He always said that if he hadn't smoked, he could have lived and been an old man.
What did he smoke?
Well, he smoked an awful lot after he went to work at National Limbs, because he said that's when he noticed that something was wrong, because he'd have 2 or 3 lit at the time, and he then he had to quit, when he got, what was that disease that Jewish women get, it's caused by smoking. I forget what they call it.
Oh.
And he went to the doctor and he told him that's what it was, what it was caused.
How old was he then?
Well, he was in his 50s, I guess, over there. May have been 60. And he would just tear his pocket, tore before he had his cigarettes, He'd just get in there and then pound on the wall, of a night. He was really nervous. And then he done real well then for a long time. And then I smoked at the time too, and hide out, so that you could smell it on anybody. And then
What kind of of cigarettes were you guys smoking?
Huh?
What brand of cigarettes did you smoke? You and Dad and Granddad?
Oh, I can't think now.
Did they have filters on them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they did. And Dad used to tuxedo. He used in a tin can.
Oh, yeah.
And Grandma J, that was when he always got in the Christmas box, was a big can of Prince Albert. He says, well, I knew what was coming.
Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, it wasn't what he really would have liked.
Why didn't Louie and Roy get along?
I don't know. But he had a smart aleck way with him, for one thing. And they just couldn't stand each other. And Louis was pretty much to want to get into your business or boss you. I remember one time he always got in with a guy at the filling station, or something. He'd talk, and he liked to talk, and he always pick up gossip and stuff. And one time I can't think what we was going to do. It was something, we got down there by this station where we was going, and he was going to get gas, and then we thought of something else when we was there, and we drove on then. And the guy, I told Louie, I guess, that we started to stop and did. He said, well, what'd you do? Change your mind after you got there, just him kidding. Papa just couldn't stand him. Then when he went over, they went down home to Aunt Mel's farm up in the hills, and Aunt Florence was there. Well, Aunt Florence and Aunt Mel was having trouble, which was another sign of old age in both of them, And Aunt Florence was so particular about her house, cleanliness. And, well, Aunt Mel had done as good as she could, but that was the way they lived. And she done her dishes and made her beds and swept and so forth, but I didn't want that country house no more conveniences as they had. It was pretty hard. And Roy would walk in without cleaning his feet too well. And she'd say, good heavens, why don't you leave that manure outdoors, Aunt Florence would say. Well, she shouldn't. And he was very sensitive, to anything said to him like that. And so they was getting on their nerves. And so Louis said, well, let's go down and bring Florence back up with her hair. She was looking for a place to stay. What I mean now, a nursing home or someplace like that. She wanted to see him. Well, Louis had taken her down there when they were down there once before, and wondered where. Well, it must have been a cheap place because it wasn't too appetizing looking to her. And so that was it. So the next time they went down, and Mom's told him, she said, now, it may not be the best thing to do, because that Florence likes to argue, And so they went and brought her back. Well, it was going along pretty good, but Aunt Florence liked to get up early. Well, Grandma did like to too, all right. But she knew Louie couldn't sleep, and there was two people up and talking, So, anyway, one thing led to another, and they'd argue religion, and stuff. And nothing was done much about it. But I forgot what they got into he told her about getting up and running sweeper or something. She was cleaning her room and getting her bed all made up, for the rest of it. Thought about getting that. And Grandma slept upstairs, so that she could have a bedroom to herself downstairs. And Mom had no business doing that because she couldn't climb either. So it didn't work out well. Grandma knew both of them. And so anyway, they got into it. And he told her just to pack up and leave, get out. And so Grandma called and wanted us to come over. Well, then that made him mad. I think he was running ain't flying out after going and getting her. And it was just 2 of one and it was 6 of the other. Yeah. So, as a rule. So, anyway, Dad, and he said, "You mean?" So, Dad, we've sacked her up and brought her over to our house. Well, Pat was due home, and I had BB. Let's see, yeah, both of them, just couldn't get along. And Aunt Florence and BB would sleep all day, I couldn't get her up. Manage her to feed her or nothing, just sleep at 4 o'clock, And me, I'd go and tell her. And I said, Dad finally said, Aunt BB said, "You'd better get up." Said, "Dorothy's been waiting all day for you to get up and take a bath." "Oh," I said, "I didn't know that." Got right up. But I couldn't, she didn't cause any trouble for me. But I mean, she was always in a good mood, But anyway, when Aunt Florence come, why, she had to sleep on the Davenport. And if BB was still in bed, Aunt Florence would sit in BB's chair. And BB would say, "Now, Dorothy, I want you to get her out of my chair." So it was a mess. And then after, when Pat came in, why, I felt bad because Florence had been good to me. Every one of them had been good to me. But I couldn't see how I could take both BB and her. So it wound up finally, we got her out at a brand new place. And it was nice. It was just been built. And I don't think, it was more, I think it was $400 a month. And we got her up at Ketter's and later for $300 when she first went. Then it raised, I think, the first month after she was there. But I done best I could, but I knew she wasn't happy because she'd had strokes, quite a few, and she'd say, "Home, home, wanting home, go home." But she had told Mom and Aunt Mill, she said, "I know," said, "I won't be happy any place that I find to go to." Said, but she had to get up early and go, and I had a little nylon somebody had made and give me, is on to push to pick up lint, off of a rug or something, a thread system. And she got that and went all over the carpet with it, and wanted to have everything cleaned up.
What would you say is the happiest time in your life? What was the happiest time?
I was I didn't want to move to Falls City, and I never liked the house there at all. And it was the nicest house I'd ever had, but I just didn't like it. And I think I didn't want to leave all of you guys up here. It was the main thing, and go to a strange place. But Dad was really happy there, and those guys at the dump were good friends. They did a lot, and they did a lot for Grandma. When she had to go to the doctor, they'd come and lift her wheelchair down. See, in the back it was bad, and it was pretty bad in the front, because she couldn't make it. At first she'd get out of her wheelchair, and then she'd come up backwards, scoot up a step like that, and then we'd help her up at the top. But and then after Papa got pretty well, that he couldn't do much lifting, why Ronnie would bring his boys, or Junior and stuff. They'd lock up for a minute till they'd get him. So they were very good to us. But then
Hi.
Hi, Lydia. How are you? Where are your shoes? Where are your shoes?
She got her stockings on.
No, she's in bare feet. Where are your shoes, Lydia? Go see mommy. Go see mommy. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Go see mommy. Go see mommy. We're in an interview.
Come on, Mommy.
Thank you, sweetheart. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
But the trouble.
Daddy kiss. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. I'll be there. I'll be there shortly, sweetheart. I'll be there shortly. Bye-bye.
When the time come then for when Louis died, by then Grandma wanted to stay there for a while, and I stayed with her a week or so, and then I had BB at home, and I knew she was going to be staying with. So then it got along pretty good till the grandma then got she had pneumonia, I believe, or something, and we took her to the hospital. Then when she got out, she come to my house to recuperate. And I tell you, her and BB, they'd wake up and she'd say, BB had a clock. And Mom would say, what time is it, Blanche? And BB'd say, what do you care? You're not going anywhere. I said, oh, I believe you're the meanest bitch I ever saw. Yeah, they just couldn't hit it off. And BB was ornery with Mom. And
Now, who was the oldest? BB was the oldest.
Blanche,
And where did Grandma J fit in the scheme? Was she older than Florence, or
no, she was the youngest girl.
She was the youngest girl. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, she was the youngest girl.
So that's sisters fighting. Sisters are fighting.
And we'd go up there and I'd say, what have you two been doing? And Florence would say, fighting. And she scratched at me one time, just bad, you know.
Is that right?
And I saw Aunt Florence be scratched too, you know. And one time Aunt Florence just picked up, Tom was up there, and he'd go up several times during the day when he'd be there, you know, see him. And they were sitting at the table, but they wasn't eating. And then Aunt Florence picked up a glass of water and just threw it in BB's face. But that was funny. Aunt Florence died first, before BB, and I'd say several years before. And she didn't miss her till, I forget how long it had been. And one of the girls said, no, Blaine, she's at another nursing home here in town. Said she just moved over there. BB said, but she was worried. And BB was worried about her before that, when she was walking around, and BB was, and she said, Florence, don't sound good to me. And of course, Aunt Florence would have a lot of little mini strokes, like, you know, and she got so she couldn't hardly talk at all.
Right.
Couldn't eat, couldn't get nothing down. She lived on that, what was it, not a Ensure, or something, that drink.
Yeah.
And Grandpa drank a lot of that.
Grammy, tell me about your daughters.
You mind?
Tell me about your daughters.
Oh.
What do you remember about growing up with your daughters, Pat, Greta,
Well,
Karen?
I didn't have a lot of leisure time after I took that ice cream stand.
Right.
I had 6 years in there, and I hated every day of it to the last, you know. Because when they were all home, I had to be over there. Because I went to work at 2:30 to 10:30, 7 days a week. And I didn't like that. But we visited all the time. They'd come, Patty'd come out and while I went to eat supper, and Greta do the cooking mostly when she was home, until she got in nurse's training. And we'd have fun. always on Saturday morning. But I don't know whether I went back. I don't think I went back to bed. I don't remember doing that. But we'd loll around, and then one of them would get dressed and go up to the bakery, and they loved those, that's like pie dough, and they'd roll them out, they cinnamon and sugar on them, and they're crisp.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are, Krispies or something, and we'd get those, and we'd have her coffee or milk in those rolls.
What do you remember about Greta as a child?
Well, Greta had a time in school at the first part, because in the high school she could have done a lot better than she did. I remember one time she flunked 2 or 3 subjects, when the grade card was F's on, and she just wasn't paying attention. And they'd give her assignments or you can make up or so forth, wouldn't do it then, but she went too studious. And now she done all right in college, but she could tell me.
Now, how did she go to college?
Out of Omaha,
Who paid for that?
BB paid. He paid.
Wow.
And Dad, I guess, paid the other. And it wasn't too much then.
Oh.
And she went in the summer too. She went right straight through so it didn't take too long to get it done.
When did she meet Jack Riesinger?
Oh, she met him. Nurses training. She started, and she got to college first. She hadn't had any chemistry and didn't take chemistry, or anything at all in high school that would have helped her there. And it was after she got out, and this started at Emmanuel, and he was one of the interns. Or that's right. I don't know whether he was an intern. Yeah, I guess he was.
What's a good memory you remember about Greta? A fun time you had when she was a child?
Well, Greta was always fun in those days, and I never was as close to any. Now Pat is the same disposition about like I was, and Greta too, and they don't show their affection as much as Karen does. And now Greta Pat, they come on down, handed it out like I had my mother before me, and my grandmother. I know she loved her children, but they was not that close feeling on them. Well, you wouldn't with that many children in the family. 9, you just got to be spread pretty thin.
Oh, yeah. Well, what do you remember about Pat as a child? Anything come to mind of Pat as a child? Any type of memories
Of what?
of Pat?
Oh, Pat?
Yeah, as a child.
Well, Pat was always more saving. She'd save things, take care of things better than the others did. And I remember her being very imaginary friends and things she'd have. I could see her talking, out on the front porch. I remember that about her. But she was and I don't remember. Her and Greta would fight when they would go to wash dishes, and Dad would have to tell her a dish and break, and that was it. And then quiet and finish up right quick.
How about Karen? What do you remember about Karen?
Karen got by with a lot. I'm sure Dad enjoyed her more than the rest of them because he had a steady job then,
Oh.
And before it was a worry, am I going to have work any longer or not? And he always enjoyed, and Dad always liked to play with him. I mean, they'd play games about like 2 kids would, I remember once I said, well, you've got a hole in your pants. And Dad said, well, come here, I can fix that. And he had the scissors. He just made it a bigger hole. She liked to have a fit about that. They'd get an ice cream cone and eat it together till it got down just about that little bit, just teeny bit at the end. And Karen got a lot of things that they didn't. She got piano lessons and dance lessons, with things that we couldn't have done earlier years, And the girls will often say, when Karen would be playing or dancing, they'd say, how come? Where's our musical talent at?
Now, when you look around the room here, Grammy, and you look at different pieces that you have in the room, what reminds you of Granddad the most?
Well, it's just more of a memory now. And I never minded talking about Granddad at any time after he died, because I knew he was ready to go. What I mean, he said, I've had a good time, a wonderful life, and said I wouldn't change a thing. But he said it's a time for everything that's got to go. I think of Granddad a lot, and what he'd say, about this or that, his opinion. But it's not the hurt that it is at first. And 7 years, that just flew, it seems like. I can't hardly imagine that. I don't go out like I used to. We used to run out, go up and see, or we'd take a hamburger and sit up there and eat, And Karen's got her, she's got to get that put in. She's got her bench all paid for, like on the other side, We always use his bench up there, that other Thomas.
Oh.
And then, that made Pat and Greta didn't like it, but that other Thomas, I said, now they'll think they're relatives of ours. And Papa didn't care, said, I'll be laying between two Mrs. Thomases, because it'll be that Thomas woman, and then Dad, and then mine's the next place there. But, and Greta and Pat will be on the back, I guess, the stone.
What items that you still have remind you most of Granddad? What items do you have most remind you of Granddad?
Items? Well, let's see.
Maybe something that he liked, maybe something that he used a lot, or something that...
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I've got an old shirt, a paisley shirt, that I kept. But I couldn't tell you where it's at. I believe it's in the closet here. These things I'll lose, and then I'll find later on. I had things upstairs on a rack, and then I don't believe the rack's up there now.
Is that right? Let me check away. Still got a little bit left. Tell me your concept on the value of money. Tell me your feelings, your thoughts on the value of money. What are your own feelings on the value of money?
Money?
Yes, money. I know you come from hard times.
Yeah.
You've seen hard times.
Well, I've had hard times, but always plenty to eat and a place to stay. But Dad and I, many a time in I-10, you couldn't have raked up a postage stamp money, We just didn't have it. And you would charge at the grocery store, but you'd be sparingly Of course, I'd have a lot of canned stuff up, and then Dad had hogs one winter, and we lived better than we ever had before, and with nothing to do around it. If there'd be a day's work, Dad would get it, and he'd go and do it. But I remember one time he was so put out at me, it'd come coal tax time, and they'd come around. Well, what they would do there in I-10, the men would say, well, I don't have any money, but I'll work, give a day's work, you know. And they'd go and they'd fool around through potholes, which was full of them anyway, you know, and they'd fill them up and stuff. Well, I didn't know anything about it, and about the custom, you know what you do. And I happened to have, I think it was $4, and I paid it. And old Papa felt so bad, you know, that I said, what do you want them to think, that we're millionaires? You know? I said, well, how would I know? He wasn't home, and I thought you had to pay it if they come around. And Dad, that day that they worked.
O'Keefe's resident. Hello? Hi, Mary. Is this Mary? Okay, I'm interviewing Grammy. Dad? Go ahead. Mary.
And the day that they all worked on the road, Dad went up and worked along with them. You know, I didn't get my money back then, but I knew from then on. Now I don't think they don't have that anymore. That quit. Well, they got other taxes when they get you now.
Yeah. Now, Granddad, but he always seemed to be very generous, even though he came from hard times.
Yeah.
Would you say that's true?
Dad had an unhappy childhood. It was just, he just had to root around best he could. And I remember him telling about, because everything, she wanted clothes, you know, and things like that. And he sold, what do you call it, bulldog papers. It was some early paper that come out or something, and they were a nickel, what you paid for the newspaper. And he sold them, and he said she'd come down and collect.
The part two. This is a part two. Okay, we were talking about Granddad's childhood.
Oh, there was no Christmas or anything like that, you know. The girls got dolls, but he didn't. He said that one present he got was from his dad, was a dog chain, and he said, I didn't even have a dog. He laughed about that.
So,
But he had, but he said that she would send him to town there at I-10, you know. It was out almost Aunt Florence's where you took them through the creek, you know. And I don't know whether you kids know. You don't remember. They were on in Westland when you remember.
right.
Yeah, that's right. They had a picturesque when you went in that prettiest creek. It was just, well, it wasn't over that deep unless it rained, you know. And you'd go up the hill. It was a pretty place
Huh.
there. But, yeah.
Grammy, what would you like people to remember about Dorothy Thomas? What
Well,
would you like people to remember?
I don't think I ever hurt anybody's feelings. Never tried to. Even people I didn't like as well as others. I can't stand to see somebody say something to hurt somebody else. I don't see any satisfaction in that at all. And I was always a good listener. I'd listen to people's trials and tribulations. And I always had friends. I didn't mix well. I didn't get out. And mix in the social life or anything. And everything bugged me about having to do something like that. I remember even going to PTA now would upset me, you know. I wondered, now will I look all right? And silly things like that. I wasn't too good socially to get out. But in a little town, you don't have to. It's, you've got friends, and that's it.
What do you want? What would you like to see happen with this family? What types of things?
I'm really proud of every one of you in there. Did you ever think how many different phases that all of you kids have got into? Of course, two's in service, but there are other things that's went along with it. And I couldn't be any prouder of the family. And I know Dad was too. And I regret that I wasn't around the other kids, because I never can think of them like I do this family, because I was around you from the time you were born. But no, now like Jackie and all of them, and Nan and Kelly, I just don't feel, you can't feel the difference. The same way with Ellen and the two boys, Sean and Lee. But as natural, she was right with them from the time they was little. But I think a lot of Retta's kids, but I just, well, Jackie was just little when they left. I mean, no, Kelly was born, but Nancy wasn't. But we enjoyed Jackie's visit last spring. He's calmed down a lot. He's 40 now.
Did you get time to talk with him?
Oh yeah, we talked, and he went to church with us, and I think it was lucky that he got who he did. Well, I mean, her family is very nice to Jackie. But now that Dawn's working, I guess they get a lot. I forget how much their payment is a month on that house. And they had a nice house before. It was a brick house, and it had 3 bedrooms, big basement. It was nice. And they really, but I think it's more prestige. And I don't think Jackie would have been the one that would. I think it was more her wanting the other one. I don't know.
Do you have any instructions to the family, or any instructions to your daughters after Dorothy is next?
No, I look for a fight, probably. I tried to fix things so all they'd have to do was go and get their CD and then have it, and there'd be no looking after. Well, I mean, no fussing up. Everything's divided that we had.
And that's how you would like it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know Karen got the most of the things, but Pat got a lot of stuff that's a lot of crap. She'll have to get rid of. From Aunt Bill, she's got a lot, material, and all things like that. She'll never use. But that's up to them then. But everything here it's all been divided. I hope they keep their lips tight till they get through, get their money and go. Of course, Greta will be well fixed when she's 70.
She's been working hard lately.
Yeah.
She's really.
Well, I never thought she'd come out that good. But here a while back, Pat said she had, what was it, over 200,000 she'll get. And if she's learned anything from this, and I've given each, let's see, I've been, ever since Roy died, I've been giving them 10,000 a year, cash. But I don't know whether I will this year or not, because my income tax was pretty big. But we want to keep it down so we don't get over 600,000. So I'll see how it is when it comes in. It's going to be some new things this year, changes in it. But,
Do you have a message for Lydia when she's 18 years old? Do you have something you'd like to say to Lydia?
well,
'Cause she can't understand anything right now.
no. Well, I hope when Lydia grows up that she'll be as good as her mother and dad, morally, and no doubt there'll be a lot of changes by then. And let's see who's it. Is Melissa next to her?
Yeah, Melissa and Ashley.
Yeah.
And then Chase.
Yeah. Chase will be daydreaming probably. That kid can't remember. Tell him something every time he gets in the other room, he's forgotten. I could kick him. Now, Aunt Pat said when she left, she said, Chase, you take your mom and go and get you 2 pairs of jeans for your birthday. And said, I don't care what you get can get 2 pairs. And get something that fits you. And because, he always wore them old long, baggy ones, He'd from the Goodwill, or he'd have a favorite pair, Dragon. And so help me, they bought the 2 pair. They cost $95 for the 2 pair of jeans. But I looked, there, he's got 2 or 3 rolls on the bottom of them jeans. Now you ain't telling me they wouldn't have his length somewhere. He likes that, and I'm going to tell him that's the way that the boys and the men did it around I-10. Everyone that had anything at all had a new pair of overalls, and they'd buy them, and then they'd turn them up on the bottom, so like that, be 2 or 3 turns. Roy Myers had them, and on Sunday you wore them. See if you was going to visit around town, or go downtown and sit on the porch. But I noticed his were pretty near dragging the floor, and those will soon go. And they were pretty, but Aunt Pat didn't mind at all, didn't pay him that much. She said, no, I told him to get what he wanted. And so she said, I thought maybe she'd have a fit up, but money. But I noticed both pairs. I saw him wear the 2 pairs, and I don't know what kind they were. They was a little special kind of it. Had a little silver bar somewhere on them, and he always gets them loose. They'll be loose at the top. Same with his shorts. He likes them boxers.
I don't understand that the fashion either. I guess that's the look.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you've stayed with Aunt Pat in Ohio, right? You've gone to stay with Aunt Pat in Ohio from time to time, haven't you?
No.
Oh, you've never stayed in...
Oh, yeah. I stayed 2 winters.
Oh,
there.
how was that?
Good. We had fun. And we had the best summer, the last summer down there, when we finished the house and sold it. And, we've done a lot of running around. We rode over to Iowa. I can't remember the town name now. Well, what we started out, I think, we went over to Skidmore, you know, where the town bully was, and they shot him. And nobody tell who it was that did it.
Oh.
Skidmore, Missouri. And it was just a little town. And awfulest bully anybody ever saw. And he was in with politics, you know, in St. Joe and around. And he'd always get off anything he done. And he just ruled the roost. And there was a whole bunch stayed in his house. And there were several women there and little kids. But it was just terrible. And we went through there and saw that. But we went on further in Iowa then. And I can't remember. Well, I can't remember the name of that. We got a picture of the courthouse. Pat collects courthouses. There's a certain firm makes little wooden things, and I said, well, I wouldn't give $6 for the. They just take the shape of the outside, you know, of the, and then cut out wood and paint it up. And she's got almost every courthouse from this one place. And anyway, that's where the Thomases stayed one winter when they came from up in Ohio. And when they came, why, that was evidently where some of them settled for a while. And Pat went and she found where they'd wintered there, or stayed there. And I don't know, it seemed like some of them stayed there. And I know when the woman came from the west, Ivanella Grimshaw, why she went in for genealogy too. And she said there was a bunch over in there. And Major was a first name that they'd named their boys. And you can look through and they keep the names pretty well. There's Hughes and Johns and Major. Oh, there's a bunch of names you can see in each generation, you know, there'd be a name. But Major was their first name, and one over in Iowa. And it was fun. We'd go like that. We'd go down and see Roy about twice a week. And I don't think he really cared for us coming, you know. And Pat said, "I'll see you next Tuesday." He said, "What for?" He'd say, you know. But he never was ornery with me, never. We always got along good as kids. And the girl that Aunt Florence and Uncle John raised, or till she got married, was she was a nice person, and Roy didn't like her for some reason. And he came down to visit my grandmother for a week and stayed, and he always had money. And he said, "I'm going to take Jim." He called me Jimmy Honshu. That was an imaginary name that I had for my playmates, you know. He said, "I'm going to take Jim downtown and get her ice cream cone." And she said, "Well, you get Margie." He said, "No, I'm not getting Margie." But,
Now, your mom, Meade, was married twice.
Twice.
Is that right?
Yeah, she married Louis.
Right. So her first husband was who?
Harrison.
Harrison.
Harrison Wilson.
Harrison Wilson. Okay. And then at 42, he died.
His father died.
His father died. Now, when did he die?
He died in 1912.
And what did he die of?
Oh, you mean my dad?
Yeah.
Oh, no, he died I can't remember. He died on March. He was buried the 16th of March, but I can't remember. Pat's got all of them little.
How old was he?
He was 56. That's all he was. And it was just, well, you can't tell. He had been a heavy smoker, and that could have been it. He had pneumonia a lot of times. I guess that's what killed him. And I had pneumonia twice, I think. I had pneumonia when I was about 6, I guess. And then my dad at the same time had pneumonia then. And I don't know, it seemed like he'd had that before. Anyway, I can remember him having pneumonia several times. When I know at least about 3.
So he died at age 56, and then Meade, how long before she married Louis?
Well, they were married before he died. They were married.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah,
because she was
out
divorced.
west.
That's right.
My dad come in from the west. She, I think she borrowed money to send him home, and so he come home, and then all the old aunts used to help him. He'd go out there and fly, and so she'd give him stuff to cook, or else she'd had him there for supper, and they could bring him milk and stuff, when she comes down. And that bill was, he had an old fiddle. It wasn't his old one. He had given that to somebody to use when he left here, I think. And then the old guy died. We never needed it, but then his dad's fiddle. And so, let me see now. Wait, I'm getting. And that bill, I bet, has given him $1,000 on that old fiddle, and never she'd give it back to him then, and then he'd come honking again, and she could give it to me. And I thought, heck, I don't want that. So he took it back to her. Because Pat found out this Aunt Grace had taken lessons from, somebody that was considered almost a prodigy, the McKenzie, and the McKenzie boy. And one of them was crazier than a loon. They were different. They must have been education or something behind some of them. But I know this one, this Marvin, he would, I don't know how he got any money, but he got money some way. Maybe he worked on the railroad or some little fiddling job. But he would walk to Weston, and that was at Bean Lake. That had been 10 miles altogether. He'd walk down there to do his banking, and stuff. But just stuff like that. He just miserly almost. But yet there was some refinement about them. And they were just different. They stuck with them by themselves quite a bit. But anyway, their brother was real good on the violin. And somebody gave him money to study in Atchison. And they sent him to Europe to study. So he was good. And Aunt Grace took lessons from him. And then some of her men friends bought her this violin. And it was considered a pretty good one. And my dad, she gave it to my dad later on. And my dad let some old friend of his have it. And it's out in the dew. Got down out, I guess outdoors, slept outdoors, and the dew, made it warp somewhere and ruined it, or they did value. And so she gave it to Pat, and to bring him. Pat took it down. They said, "Well, it's ruined, being wet and then dry." So that was it. And the old fiddle was still down there. And I believe, did we leave that there? I think we did. And I tell you, I never saw such a mess in my life as that was. I said I would hate to go to this sale and see all this. Well, I told him, Dad, go ahead and have it cleaned up. And they did. It looked good. Yeah, I was tickled that it cost over $1,000 to get it cleaned out.
Wow.
But I would have been embarrassed for people to saw how that was. But they cleaned it all out and sold more stuff than I ever imagined it could be. They had clothes, Jimmy, hanging up, the things we'd said when the kids were in high school, coats and things, and Roy used to wear that over his shoulders, by night, sitting in there watching that old TV they had. And Aunt Mick had dresses. That was what Uncle Harry showed. That was just covered, hanging over nails, on a hanger. And they took everything off and folded, and they sold all them old clothes on hay racks.
Wow. So your dad and Grandma Jay, how long were they married, and what happened?
Well, let me see. Well, it was just drinking. And she was having to support him, and she couldn't make a go of it, couldn't make earning it. And Johnny, what she done at the last there, she worked with an Italian family and bought the Shady Rest Motel. And that's what she done, clean cabins. And she worked there several times for them. And she really liked the people, and they used to always write Grandma's Christmas time. And I don't know what their old Scott was or what their name was, so they must have had it changed, or maybe the man wasn't Italian. But Mom said at noon when it'd come time for lunch, why, she'd say, "Come on, Capucci." She'd tell Mom, said, "We'll go and have her dinner." And she said she was a good cook. It was always the Italian dishes. They were nice to Mom. But Grandma had made did a lot of hard work. She did. But the worst job she had, and I believe that's what she was doing. No, she worked at that motel, and Mom was talking about how they do sheets. She said when they was cleaning, they started this one, and they'd bring a wet sheet they'd wash, and said put it straight on that mattress, certain way, and said that'd dry in no time, and they didn't have to iron it then, That's the bottom sheet. And but she said that was hard work.
To your knowledge, did anyone in the family on your side have any contact with slaves or blacks?
Yeah. My great grandmother landed in Weston. Now let's see. That was Grandma Jay's grandma and grandpa. They landed in Weston, and Pat's got a little book, them little generation books. It was a genealogy, some old man out in Colorado, some of Grandma Norris's side, and published, but the old fart had got every date wrong, on I think there's 3 things in mine. Told, I think the marriage date was wrong, and there was 2 or 3 wrong, because my grandmother, had told him he come, and he was a surprise relative that Grandma didn't know very well, and she told him just off of cuff, about when she thought it was. She'd know hers and her kids, and didn't have the kids' date right in a lot of places. She was getting up in years then, but now what did I started to say?
Slaves. Grandma Jay's.
Slave.
Right.
And Mariah and Robert, her husband, landed in Weston. See, the Missouri River ran on the other side. They come through I-10, right on the edge there, about where the highway goes by now. And she landed off a steamboat in Weston, and she had Winnie was a woman's name, 2 slaves and a man, and that's when the war was just about over because of when they got there. But I can't think of the man's name, but they was a pair. I guess a husband and wife probably. And they said after when they said that everybody was free, you know, so there's no more slave business, and they'd still hang around there, and she'd washed for my grandmother, her great grandmother, and they said, "What do we do? You know, we don't know how to do anything, only what we've been doing." And they had a man's sock full of gold pieces with them. I always thought that she done some of her folks that are away or something, but she didn't have any children then. And
now, what was your great grandmother's name?
huh?
What was your great grandmother's name?
Mariah.
Mariah Norris.
No,
Mariah
Scott would have been, and they found us where the Scots are out
Mariah
in Kentucky.
Scott.
She was a Kentuckian, and that was. Did Pat fix you a letter? Send you a letter that Mariah's brother wrote her.
The Civil War soldier one?
Yeah.
Yes, I have a copy of that.
I've got mine too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that was something. And she found somebody in Louisville that was connected in that some way. Some man, it's his wife that was in the Scots business.
And
but
what?
He said that he just loved us getting that letter, you know. And he said he found out, though, that this bunch that come through and killed this man, this brother of Mariah's, what did they in the Civil War, wasn't the North or something. It said there was a bunch of renegades that'd go through, you know, and do a lot of damage and take what they could. And they cut his arm off, I think. Wasn't that what it said in the letter? I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
It was something about, it was a brother of this man that wrote, and Mariah. But this man said that, well, he'd had or got a hold of news or something that said that wasn't the rebels or whoever.
Now, where's the Indian connection?
Huh?
Where is the blood, the Indian connection? Who had the Indian blood?
Well, that was on the Wilson side.
The Wilson side.
Yeah. And as I said, why didn't I ever think of that? Because my dad liked to talk, but I don't think he knew too much about it. Well, you know, that was sort of a shame if you were connected with the Indians in those days.
Right.
And grandma now, she had that Jane that her husband died, and she and her two brothers got that Punch and Judy show, you know. She was I forget how much Indian she was, because her mother was they said full-blooded, and they said when he brought her home and they were married, why his folks had a fit about him marrying her. But then I've heard too, they said he was part Indian on his own too, they thought, so nobody knew. And I never knew anything, only I do know they looked Indian.
Now, what part of
Leif's sister, Ellen, she had black eyes, shiny black eyes, and coal black hair, and she was a big woman. Not what you call real fat, but just big bones, you know, too.
Now, where's that from? What side of the?
That's the Wilson side.
The Wilson side. Lafayette was your dad, your uncle.
Yeah.
Your uncle.
And it was on his side, and so I never, and they were Indians or people that were part Indian. Lola and I went with the the little tin soldier, he bought a new Ford, and had side curtains. You know, you put it on and turn a little thing like that. You know, and he wanted to go up to, and I believe. I can't think of the name of that town for sure. It was a little Kansas town, and it's between Atchison and Falls City, but it was in Kansas. And we drove from Iatan and picked up my grandma Lola, and went with Willie up to these people's. Reese was their last name, and they all showed Indian very strongly. And a Reese would have to have been James' maiden name, my great grandmother, because I know it was because that would have had to have been that, and that's because these Reeses up here with dark eyed, you know, hair, and Grace was always talking about. She was going to get in on some of that Indian money somewhere in Atchison, you know, and she never did. I don't think she ever done anything else about it. But I remember driving up there with him, and he drove slow, you know, and it was Sally was the lady's name, and I can't think of what her husband's name was, but they lived in a little Kansas town, and Dad and I came through when the new highway was being built in Falls City there. It was a stretch where you had to go through little Kansas towns, you know, now forget where we come out. And I said, well, that's a town that I remember coming up with Willie and my grandmother. But we never talked Indian, never mentioned anything about Indian.
You know,
and Willie never talked about anything. Man, if his eyes hadn't been blue, but I guess there was a lot of Indians that had blue eyes, one of them mixed with the white.
Right.
And,
do you know what tribe of Indian?
Huh?
Do you know what tribe of Indian? What type?
Yeah, it was. They're called Seminoles now, but it was Creek, C-R-E-E-K, or yeah, and said. They were sent down there or something, the Creeks were, and said gradually they just involved and intermarried till it's, that's what they're known as Seminoles.
Huh.
So I don't know.
Huh.
And I don't know whether the Creeks were ever in Oklahoma. I really don't know about that. But a lot of things I knew Willie was Indian, I can tell that.
Now, his relationship, Willie again, was who?
He was a sister. He was a brother to Jane, and Jane was the one that the two brothers, you know, stayed with them, and then I think they got her money. What I mean. They all spent the money, what little it was, traveling, but the Punch and Judy show.
Right. Okay, so Willie was Jane's brother.
Yeah.
And who is Jane?
Jane was a Reese